Salam sejahtera guys, I am Adam.
Hai, salam sejahtera. Selamat kembali. Welcome back to the Dive Log Podcast and I'm Dicky. We would like to say our apologize. Minta maaf banyak-banyak. For the past month, I think bulan 5 Mei,
Betul.
we were not able to commit ourselves for our podcast session. Adam, maybe we need to explain a little bit what made us skip May.
At the beginning of this podcast, right, we commit ourselves to do at least a bi-weekly episode. So basically 2 weeks we have to come up with one episode.
Yeah.
But a lot of things happened in May. One thing is because I went to the island for a month. The schedule between me and Dicky, we couldn't really match. So we don't really have the time of the window to see each other.
Exactly.
But eventually we actually did. We tried to record 2 episodes. There's some technical issue with our equipment.
Yeah.
The mic here, which I'm using right now, has a bit of a problem. So I need to reset the firmware, this and that. I mean, it's fixed now, but it hindered us 2 days.
2 days, yeah.
We were recording halfway and then I realized that my voice was not even recorded. It was just only Dicky talking. And then I'm just like, but there's no voice coming out from the video.
One time we did a whole session, we thought we finished it and then the file got corrupted. That kind of
Oh yeah, that was the worst.
So yeah, and then we had to go our way again to do whatever we need to do, and we could not really find the time until today. We apologize for that. A lot of you
reach out to us to ask us like when is the
personal message into the podcast, into YouTube and so on, asking us is there any
episode coming out that weekend.
So we are flattered. I am flattered. I am glad listeners out there or viewers out there that's really interested in what we're doing.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Before we start with our topic today, we were just at the exhibition. So yesterday,
MIDE.
Yesterday throughout the weekend, 7, 8, 9 of June. There was an exhibition in Malaysian International
Dive Expo
Trade and Exhibition Center.
Oh, okay.
Which is called MIDE, so Malaysian International Dive Exhibition.
Yes.
I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate Asia Events, namely Ness and Kenny, because yet another successful year. For
this year, I think there were a lot more visitors compared to last year. I think that's what I noticed.
During the exhibition, I was there just a little bit here and there, but Adam was there most of the time throughout the 3 days. And a lot of you came to him and recognized him and introduce yourself and congratulate Adam, showing love that they like our podcast. So
thank you so much, guys. I mean, for approaching me, stopping me, and saying hi, that you guys actually enjoy our little podcast that we are doing here. It definitely, drives us to do more of this kind of thing and episode. I think it's also one reason why we are back to the studio so fast right after the exhibition. So we can do more episodes for you guys.
Yes.
This year alone, me and Dicky, we're gonna commit at least 24 episodes for 2024. By hooks or crooks, we definitely need to come up with 24 episodes. So we definitely need to catch up a bit. Try to come up with more contents and episode for you guys. If it's possible, I would like you guys to actually contact us. Let us know the topic of interest that you want us to talk about. Of course, if you guys would like to come and join us for our podcast, please do contact us. We will be happy to have you in our podcast to discuss all matters scuba diving related. Whether it's equipments, whether it's courses, diving locations, anything related to scuba diving, come talk to us.
Exactly.
Anything.
We have had a request to talk about, was it evacuation or emergency?
Safety, basically. Safety
aspect.
Safety in diving. Standard operating procedure when it comes to safety, like accidents and all those kind of things.
So if you are that listener,
thank you for the feedback.
Yes. But bear with us as well. We will be talking about that hopefully soon enough. For today, we have yet another request. Prior to that request, was to be talking about dive equipment. One of the main equipment, basic equipment, which is the Buoyancy Compensator.
BCD.
BCD.
Or BC, depending on where you come from.
Yes. Ya, ada orang panggil BC, ada orang panggil BCD, ada orang so macam-macam lah. There's so many terms for it, right? Adam, nama tu BCD, apa maksud dia? Maybe ada banyak yang kat luar sana yang panggil BC. Ada yang even pakai jacket. You know, so there's so many names ataupun nama panggilan untuk this particular item. BC ataupun BCD tu is actually a short form for Buoyancy Compensator Device. However, there are also people who call it Buoyancy Control Device. So, perbezaannya compensator or control. Yeah. And
I don't like the word control. Vicky. I think a lot of people call it control device rather than compensator device. So obviously the word control and compensator is a big difference.
Yes.
When it comes to the meaning of it. A buoyancy control device, it basically means that you control your buoyancy with your BCD. But it was created to compensate rather than control. So at the start of a lot of the open water course, right, a lot of the students assume that is the device that actually control you going up and down.
Yes.
Which is true to a certain degree, but not entirely, right? Even now, a lot of divers that we meet, you know, when they want to ascend, instead of kicking, they inflate their BCD.
I've seen that a lot as well,
Yeah, which is definitely the wrong way.
That's scary though.
Yeah, that is definitely a buoyancy control device.
So how you call, how you interpret what the item is, it's to you, and then it determine what you do with it, right?
Oh, yeah.
So having to call it correctly is really important, I would say. So guys, if you are calling it buoyancy control device, we're not trying to pick a fight with anyone, but let's maybe change it to buoyancy compensator device. Yeah.
So a compensator device is just to assist you to achieve whether it's positive buoyancy, neutral buoyancy, or negative buoyancy.
Yeah.
It does not control the whole thing. It's just to assist you. So what is a BCD?
At the very beginning, back in the old days, I think maybe in the 60s or 70s, people dive with something that they put around their shoulder. So it looks like a tire inner tube. They call it as a horseshoe BCD. You have it on top of the chest. So you keep the buoyancy on the topper part of your torso. And as the years go by, evolution kicks in, blah, blah, blah. People want to make it easy and combine it with a harness to carry the tank. So they make it like a backpack, like a jacket-style BCD. Almost like you're wearing a vest, that the BCD is a 2-in-1 thingy. It's a flotation device along with a carry harness to lift your tank.
Dicky. So the initial horseshoe BCD, the tank does not attach to the BCD?
No. They have this harness, I think. They put on harness. Some people call it the camp pack.
It's basically two devices back then.
Yeah.
So the buoyancy and also the harness for the tank is two separate things.
Yes. And then comes the jacket BCD, where they, sandwich the two things together with nice design due to certain dive environment and so on. And we have people doing more serious dive. They have modular BCD. The
modular BCD that you're talking about, is it the backplate wing BCD?
Yes, the backplate and the wing BCD.
And recently also Sidemount BCD, Sidemount diving is getting very popular.
Yes.
So you see a lot of companies now coming up with different designs.
Yes.
I think we are in an interesting stage in Sidemount diving.
Development of Sidemount diving, yeah.
Yes. A lot of the manufacturing companies out there are trying all sorts of designs to see what works and what does not work. So there are a lot of different types of BCD. I mean, we did discuss about Sidemount diving in our previous episode.
Yeah.
But the exhibitions that we have been to and then the things that we have seen, Sidemount BCD is still evolving until today.
Yes. Evolution, or when something evolves, it can either be simple and basic, but it does the work. And at times it can also be very complicated.
It's just a matter of preference. Some people like it to be autonomous, as in easy to use. Just go diving, jump down into the water, and then just do whatever they want to do. Some people would like to fine tune everything, right? Like the D-ring has to be a certain way. The harness should be, worn at a certain way. I mean, it's just a matter of preference.
We had discussions with fellow divers, students, experienced divers. Everyone has their feeling about certain or any make of dive equipment. I mean, I guess it's very difficult to satisfy everybody, right? Nothing in this world or nothing that is created by the dive manufacturer will
satisfy the masses.
Yeah, will satisfy you. Like, for example, like myself, I have so many BCDs. Not to brag, but it's just that it has got a specific use. Yes, some of us want to have something that I buy this, but I want it to be multi-purpose. I want to be able to use this to do A kind of diving, B kind of diving, C kind of diving. But that's not the case in my opinion, especially if you're really serious about the things, the diving, the kind of diving that you do. It can be very specific. So what I'm trying to say is that maybe if you do cave diving, jacket style BCD may not be something that you would want to use. In fact, with the current evolution of Sidemount BCD, they are still divers, really good divers. They were responsible with rescuing people. Their BCD setup is just, how should we call it? It's just in a tube. So Homemade.
You're talking about Rick Stanton.
Yes.
Would you mind telling them what is Rick Stanton's setup like when he was doing the cave rescue in Thailand?
I envision or I see from the documentary is that it's in a tube and with harness and so on. It's all homemade. It has got
cable ties,
carabiners, puncher kit, carabiners. Inflation, deflation is by, if I'm not mistaken, it's almost like a platypus straw kind of thing.
It's definitely something that you cannot buy off the shelf.
No, those divers really know what they're doing.
The inner tube is actually the tubes that they use for tires.
Yeah. Maybe orang-orang Malaysia lama-lama dulu, when you pergi pusat rekreasi, waterfall ke apa kan, you pakai pelampung. Pelampung is the word lah. Pelampung getah tu, yang tire tu. That's what he used as his Sidemount BCD.
Our cave instructor told us, if it works for you, it's a good system.
Yes.
Sometimes it doesn't need to be fancy. It doesn't need to be for everyone. Most important thing is you know what you're doing and it works for you, as I said. Of course, I am not condoning everyone to make your own BCDs and dive it. There are people who are knowledgeable and able to do that. But for the masses, and obviously people like us, it's better to just buy it off the shelf because we probably don't know what the hell we are doing.
So there are instructors out there who can guide you, can explain and, open up BCDs for you and explain everything and how maybe give you an idea to suit to your requirements and set up your own dive equipment according to your requirements. In general, a BCD is something that you will carry your tank, your air source that will be attached
to a buoyancy device.
So basically there are three things that is connected. So the tank, the regulator, and the BCDs, because the air has got to be delivered into the BCD to inflate the BCD, and regulator is just a means of delivering the air from the tank to the BCD. So you will have exhaust valves. That is mainly if you have overinflated BCD. So rather than having the whole BCD exploded, it may sound
extreme,
but it's.
As an instructor, obviously you get that question a lot. A student will ask you, right, if you overinflate, will the BCD explode? I think you get that question quite a lot.
What happened to me? Will I be, injured and kind of stuff? Actually, no. That's why you have the exhaust valve, or in other words, we call it dump valves as well. And some BCDs there are 2, some BCDs there are 3. Okay. And you will have the inflator-deflator mechanism where you will use your fingers. I always teach my student that they are different design, but you generally use these 2 fingers, your index and your thumb. And always remember, thumb is to inflate, index finger to deflate.
I read that in the old days, most of the BCDs are actually manual inflate. Yeah, it's not connected to any inflator hose. You need to auto inflate your BCD in the old days. Then only they started doing the inflator hose thing.
Yep.
And apart from that also, there are some BCDs or some types of diving where you do not use your main source of air to inflate your BCD. There is actually a separate tank that they use to inflate your BCD. I'm not sure why they do it. I mean, of course, in modern diving, we don't use that anymore. Most of the time, we only see dry suit divers carrying argon gas for their dry suit. But your main BCD is inflated by your back gas, right?
Yeah.
I don't understand why, but maybe if you're driving trimix, I would understand that you probably want to conserve your trimix. Yeah.
You will not be,
and then you just maybe carry a separate tank to just inflate your BCD, right?
Yeah.
All you trimix diver out there, maybe you can reach out to us to tell. Does it hurt you to inflate your BCD with your trimix gas?
If you're playing with it all the time, you'll be pumping, the trimix gas into your BCD. Ew.
I reckon, if you're diving trimix, you'll be using your BCD a lot to compensate for the weight and for the depth.
Yes.
You're probably reaching for the inflator hose quite often compared to recreational diving.
Yeah,
that's for sure.
So, yeah.
I think every single time you press, it hurts a little bit.
100
yeah
100 I guess so.
For those of you who are not exposed to trimix diving, the gas is really, really expensive. It's because we cannot produce helium. It's a natural resource thing. There's only like a certain amount that you can get. Yeah, but generally speaking, it is very expensive. For instance, a twin set trimix gas setup will probably cost you over 1,000 ringgit.
Depends on how much you're putting
depending on the mix and everything. But it would definitely be more than 1,000 ringgit for one set.
Yes.
So imagine every dive is 1,000 ringgit, 1,000 ringgit, 1,000 ringgit or more. I mean, it definitely hurts.
Yeah.
It's one of the reasons why I'm not getting into trimix so far. Because my pocket is not that deep.
Our pockets are not that deep though.
And I'm running out of kidney to sell, bro.
Stop saying that. Don't always say that. Touch it. But anyway, it's a fun topic to be talking about BCD. Yeah? So much you can talk about. The BCDs nowadays comes with straps, D-rings for you to hook your stuff onto you. But there's pros and cons to it lah. Just because the BCD or the harness that you wear has got all of this mounting accessory, we have this saying, don't be like a Christmas tree. So you essentially hook everything on your BCD and you just clutter everything onto you. Sometimes the things that you don't even need on that particular dive, you just have it there. That can be very messy. Not only one, it will damage whatever equipment that you have. Secondly, it will definitely cause inconvenience and drag. So be mindful when you have things are there to make things easy for you, but not necessarily. Don't go and do things out of the norm lah.
Everything that you bring underwater should have a purpose.
Yeah.
The more you have on your body, actually the more failure point it has as well. So there is of course like a return of investment. There's only so much that you can carry in order to be safe. And once you pass that point, then it will start become dangerous. Because the more things you carry, the more exposed you are, the more surface area you have, the more issue of entanglement that you will get as well.
Yes.
Whether it's you get tangled in the corals or restriction or whatever, right? Just carry what you need. Every dive might be different. You won't be carrying everything almost the same dive. Some diving doesn't even require you to carry a BCD. For instance, like you are diving from shore, shallow dive. You are just walking from the shore down to underwater, right? You don't even need a BCD. Commercial divers usually do not use a BCDs, especially those who are doing a hard head diving, those with tethered lines on their helmet. Actually, using a BCD can be hazardous for them. If the BCD accidentally inflate, it can be fatal for them because they will shoot up like a rocket. So which is why they don't carry BCDs. The way they maintain their depth is to their tether, to their line. So they can also achieve buoyancy. I won't say buoyancy, but they can maintain position with the equipments that they're carrying. So they don't need a BCD. So bear in mind that carry what you need.
Yeah. I would just like to add to that as well. With regards to this, to know how much you need to bring, what are essential items you need to bring. There is a course that's called Self-Reliant Diver. That's a good course for anyone to go and take up. It will definitely be beneficial. Take performance buoyancy as well. How to use the BCD. I mean, we're not trying to sell, but I mean, the purpose of this podcast is to share with everybody about diving.
Knowledge.
Right? So knowledge. If you want to know more, if you seek that knowledge, go for the courses as well. Yeah? Okay, so how divers use BCD to control buoyancy. So we know already in our courses, there's mainly 3 buoyancy characteristics: positive, neutral, and negative, right? Positive is when you are afloat, so you are up on the surface. Neutral is when you are underwater in mid-water, so you are in the water column. Negative is when you are right at the seabed. So
for you to descend.
Or
basically.
you're descending, and then so that's why there is a descent called negative entry.
Negative entry.
Negative descent, negative entry. It's mainly used when you dive in really strong currents. You will not wait for everybody. You just negative, get underwater, and regroup with everybody underwater. That's also something very interesting to practice.
There are actually 2 ways to control your buoyancy with your BCD. The first one is the most common one that we use, which is to control the volume of the BCD, where you add in gases and you remove gases from your BCD. So obviously, if you add in gases, then you'll be positive, and then you remove gases, then you'll be negative. And there's a second way where you control the density of the BCD, which we don't see very common nowadays. Actually, ever common. So it's what submarine use to control their buoyancy. It's a bit more difficult to do that because it requires a pump.
Ballast and all that kind of stuff.
And a battery system. If you go and check out the Velo system, that's what they are using. To summarize this system, it has a set volume of gas inside it. In order to become negative, you pump water into the system, so you become heavier and then you sink. For you to become positive, you need to pump out the water out of the system.
Lighter, all that kind of stuff, lah.
Yes, then you will float, right? It requires a pump, which means it needs battery as well. I think it's much smaller than a BCD. If you look at the Avelo system, it's just a tank. You just need to strap on a tank and then you can go. Like there's no cumbersome thing. Everything. It's just a tank.
So harness with the tank,
Yeah, but it's not that common because I think it's a bit more expensive to use. Most dive center will probably do not have facilities to support this kind of devices.
Nowadays, we normally practice having our weights on our waist, and we have it on our weight belt.
That is the simplest way actually to attach.
But down the road, there is also a need to have weights placed in various locations on the body. That is where the integrated weight system comes in. Not only you will not be using a weight belt because you'll be putting the weights, the lead weight into your BCD, but there are also integrated weight system or weight system that is placed on the higher side of the BCD behind the shoulder blade, for example. So why do we have that? Is because sometimes you need to trim your body underwater. We do see a lot of people diving in so many different trim underwater. There are people who be diving like that, vertical. So you're almost like a seahorse going underwater. So there are also people who are doing it horizontal, so vertical and horizontal, right?
We were asked this question at Midday yesterday. I remember. What is the perfect trim? Some people will think that it's like head down and then your feet up. Some people think it's in between, but most of the time, right? I think I remember you say in between, whereas me is feet up. There is no right or wrong way. It depends on your preference. But most important thing, why do we need to be in a trim position, right? One thing is because when you're in trim position, you have more control over your movement.
Yes.
Consume less air. And of course, to prevent entanglement.
If you're swimming horizontally, but your body is slightly at a slant, and then you're always going against the water column, right? So that creates drag and so on. So you get tired or you use more energy than you need. Hence, you will be using a lot of air. The efficient way of diving in that situation is to be horizontal. That is why we see a lot of the tech divers, the techies, we call it, they have their bodies really flat like that and the legs are up like that. That is to reduce the drag because of the tanks that they carry and so on, and that profile gets them to swim very efficiently, so they don't tire themselves. We see a lot recreational divers are following that kind of body trim as well, which is good. But nevertheless, there are people who, find it maybe a bit difficult. So because that kind of trim requires a lot of practice. Also, in order to achieve that kind of trim is by knowing where to put your weights. Because if you have your weights on the waist, that's going to be the
heavier part of the body.
Of your body. So it's going to pull you down. Your body's always going to be in that position. But if you move that weight around, maybe higher up, like I said just now, where you have the weights up higher behind your shoulder blade, then the top part of your body is going to be heavy and then it's going to pull down. In my opinion, there's no right or wrong, yes, but whatever works for you, as long as when you dive, does not stress you up, you get to move from one point to the other efficiently, effortlessly, that's what you use. So,
there's a certain dive company out there that has a device that measures your trim.
Oh.
Do you know that?
Yeah.
Have you seen that device?
I think I saw it on YouTube or somewhere.
There is. I've seen it in person.
Okay, so
I've seen
was
that
it at
device
the show?
It's at one of the show, at one of
Okay.
the book. I've seen it.
All right.
Yeah, it's the trim police.
All right.
Wee wee.
All right. I don't know, Yes, you have your own perception of how things needs to be done.
There's also a certain way that it needs to be done. It's always a guideline that you need to follow in order to dive safer and safely. A lot of people think that, tech divers are senile. They need to do things a certain way. If not, this and that, But it's for the purpose of being safety.
But then again, if it's too rigid, right, Adam? If it's too rigid,
yeah.
If you can dive like that, okay, for argument's sake, if you can dive like that, but you say no, you have to dive like that, slightly like that. But if both trim works, it does not hurt the individual. It does not create any damage to the environment. Why can't you? Why do you still need to enforce a person to be in a specific
That's true.
trim?
Yeah.
Don't make things difficult. That's just what I'm trying to say here. So when you know the benefits of different ways of diving or different trims, and you use it by all means. That's just me. I'm a simple guy, I think.
Would you say BCD is an important component to achieve your desired trim?
Perhaps. Yeah, I think so. Different trim will need different design of BCD, I would say. Now, coming back to what we talked from the beginning, BCD has its evolution. In the beginning, you have the horseshoe design that is on your shoulder, and then you have the jacket design and the modular design. Why? It's because of how you want to dive, the trim that you want to achieve. That's where that evolution comes in, right? If you're just talking about one BCD, then I may not agree to it, you see, because there are weight systems that you can use. It's possible to achieve buoyancy without a buoyancy compensator device, because you can just use your lungs to maintain your buoyancy underwater. There are people who dive even having a buoyancy compensator, but they never use the buoyancy compensator. It's just a means to carry the tank.
I tend to not put all my stuff on my BCD. I keep my BCD as light as possible. I think I learned that in technical diving. Most of my accessories that I bring to diving, I keep it in my pockets. So the only thing that my BCDs carries is basically my torch. The things that I use most often. Even that also, my torch is always on my hand, right?
Yeah.
So unless I'm doing something, I will only clip my torch onto my BCD. Other than that, most of the stuff are in my pouches or in my pockets. I don't put basically stuff into my BCD. Whereas I think most recreational people will use their BCD as a means to store things. That's pretty common for you to see that.
Yeah.
But then again, there's no right or wrong. What I'm trying to say is it also depends on your biological characteristic.
Yeah.
Some people are, like me, feet heavy. Some people are torso heavy.
Yeah.
So it's different. But most important thing is getting the right BCD for you, which I think we will come into that later.
With regards to the feet heavy and so on, there's, again, we're talking about trimming. To maintain the trim, there's a lot of ways to do it. There's a lot of things that you have to look into, maybe having... In fact, I will touch a little bit on fin as well. There are also negative, neutral, or positive fin. If you're feet heavy, then you might want to get a neutral,
lighter
if not
fin.
a lighter fin or slightly buoyant fin. Then you can achieve the trim that you want to achieve. I've seen a guy who haven't got the chance to find the perfect fin for him. His feet heavy. So what he did is he purchased or whatsoever a thicker wetsuit. He didn't need the wetsuit. He only cut off the area to put as a sock, maybe like a shin guard like that, because that thick wetsuit helps with buoyancy as well.
Yes, I
so
understand.
it helps him with his trim. So I was like, wow, it's just, how people, but that is being out of the box. And you can only do that when you have knowledge, right? And when you have creativity and knowledge to understand what the body is, what the equipment is, then you can do that lah. We always have this thing. The argument is when you use a jacket BCD, you tend to have more weights than if you're using a modular BCD.
This is the most common questions that we get or people get when it comes to purchasing a BCD. Jacket or backplate wing? Jacket or backplate wing? An ongoing debate for many, many years, and it's still debate now.
Yes.
It's the most common question that we get asked when it comes to purchasing BCD.
I harap pendengar kat luar tu just, BCD topic. Oh, there's a lot of argument pun about this BCD. Ada yang kata backplate tu untuk technical diver. Then you kata this technical wannabe. Please stop that. Ada orang suka jaket BCD. Ada orang boleh pakai jaket BCD. Ada orang suka modular BCD. I pakai dua-dua. Kalau you tanya if you ask me, I really like the backplate style BCD, the modular style BCD. Because for me, not to discredit the jacket style BCD, but for me, it's a little bit bulky. It's a bit cumbersome. Especially when on the surface, when I need to gain buoyancy, bila I nak achieve positive buoyancy, I feel suffocated. I tak rasa bebas. But with the backplate BCD, with the modular style BCD, there's no inflation around your body. It's just in the back. Tapi ada orang argue with that as well because the inflation is at the back and it's always forcing you to fall forward. And back to what we discussed earlier, not one BCD that can satisfy everybody, right? But then again, there are things that you can do to make things work for you well. Like for example, modular style BCD, there are ways. If you configure, kalau you configure the equipment betul-betul, you place your weights betul-betul, you won't fall forward. That is for sure. If you fall forward, that means there's something wrong with your configuration. That's it.
When we are on the surface, it's very likely that our legs are usually in front instead of below. So in order to prevent us from falling flat down or as you said, so most of the time our legs are in front. And for me, on the surface, I usually like to swim with my back facing the direction that I'm going.
So you're leaning on your back a little bit, almost like slouching, and then you fin.
It's like we are sitting on a rocking chair when I'm diving modular BCD. Jacket style BCD has an advantage too, especially when it comes to teaching beginners. One thing about jacket style BCD is more like a wear and go kind of thing. There's little configuration that you need to make. Get the right size, take it, wear it, and go. The features of jacket style BCD is it has buoyancy throughout the whole body. So it's more comfortable for the new divers. Keeps you in a vertical position on the surface comfortably. Also the standard position that most people are in. So they feel more comfortable. But underwater, it will always push your head up. So it's
because it's also doing that.
So it's very likely that you are in a seahorse position. Of course, you can achieve trim position when you are doing jacket, but it requires more effort to do that compared to a modular style BCD.
Or a backplate style BCD.
I do know instructors that prefer jacket styles than modular style as well. So as Dickie said, it's just a matter of preference.
Yes.
One thing you cannot deny is the modular style BCD has more options. You can mix and match.
Rojak so
yes.
As they call it, rojak.
You can add in more things and also from different companies, from different manufacturers. Most of the time it's doable, but sometimes it's not. So you need to make sure that when you buy it, it's suitable for the BCD and the use of it. It's also more adjustable because it uses a harness system. If you are, let's say, M size and then you work out a little bit more and then you jaga your makanan a little bit more, you become S size, you can easily adjust it to the size that you require.
You don't have to buy a new BCD.
Jacket style is easy because you just take it and wear, but also you cannot adjust it.
Yeah.
So if you change your body type, it might not fit you anymore.
Hence, you will be buying another BCD.
Yes, and also, of course, if your jacket style BCD is rosak or is damaged or in another way, you need to go back to the manufacturer, the same manufacturer, to get the same item.
Yep.
If they do not manufacture that model anymore, it will be difficult for you to look for a spare part.
So it's as good as out of the window. So that leads us to a topic: how do I take care of the BCD? How do I make sure that I can use my BCD throughout my lifetime? I'm so sorry, with the jacket BCD you can't, but with the modular BCD, with the back plate style BCD, in most cases you can. Sometimes it outlives the person. Like Adam said, jacket style BCD, if you have puncture, okay, you will patch, but how much can you patch? The modular style BCD, the name modular is the key, because you can just change every single part of it. And also we mentioned rojak. If you can't find that particular part from that brand, most likely be able to use other brands, part and rojak. In a long run, that kind of BCD will be more cost effective, I would say. Easy to maintain, easy to repair. You don't have to spend so much. You can still use that BCD throughout your life. And you only change little parts as you go along when it gets damaged.
Modular style BCDs also allows you to change your configuration. You can use a soft plate, you can use a metal plate. Yeah, you can change it to single tank, you can change it to twin tanks.
Twin tank diving.
Certain BCDs will allow you to change it to side mount as well.
Yes, with adapters and that kind of stuff. I mean, we're not trying to promote.
It's just the way it is, basically.
It is. So back to maintenance. Yes, we are out there under the sun. We are exposed to the elements. Salt water, fresh water, contaminated water. I don't know. How do you care for it? We want to wash it clean, make sure that keep it dry. Maybe on certain parts, spray silicone spray on it, like maybe rubbery parts and stuff like that to preserve that items. And the inflator deflator mechanism, once every year, I would say if you dive frequent, then you will do it more often. Open up this BCD up, the mechanism, every once a year. Clean everything, change the O-ring, and then it's as good as new. Never keep it under the sun.
Using your BCD is also a way of maintaining it.
Yes.
Because the BCD is designed to be underwater. It's designed to be moist.
Yes, not to be kept.
To be moist in the environment. So you need to dive the BCD. You need to use it in order for you to maintain the functionality of it. If you have your BCD, you have not been diving for 3 months, soak it in the water. There are a lot of plastic components, there are a lot of rubber components that will get dry, and if they are too dry, they will crack. Like what happened to my BCD. I have a few BCDs, and there are certain BCDs that I don't really dive that often, which resulted in my dump valve being cracked.
Yeah.
Because it was just too dry, and then once I use it, and then it's just cracked. And of course, it needs replacement for sure. So if you're not using your BCD for more than a few months, at least dump it into the water, soak it a little bit, bring it out, and then dry it. Yeah. And of course, as Dicky said, it's important to put it in a dry environment. Most important thing is not a hot environment.
Yeah. Room temperature would be okay.
Yeah. And the more often you use it, also the easier for you to detect any failure points as well, and then you have time to change it.
With any dive equipment, maintenance is really important. Really recommend that you service and maintain your equipment every year. There's a lot of wear and tear parts. You need to change them. That's how you ensure the longevity of your dive equipment, in this case BCD, right?
What is your routine when it comes to maintaining your BCD?
We are dive instructors. We work at a dive center, or we have access to our servicing tools and parts, right? I service my BCD every 6 months. Our season starts from February to October, late November, right? So I split into two. Middle of the season, I will definitely service my equipment. I will just open up everything, change all the wear and tear parts, because we dive a lot. So we get corrosion. I don't like that, because that is going to damage the equipment. I dismantle everything. I clean it in a solution, or if I have ultrasonic cleaner, I will use the ultrasonic cleaner. I lubricate all the rubber parts, like the O-ring and that kind of stuff. And I assembled it back again. It's actually a very simple thing to do on a BCD. It only takes half an hour maybe at most. At the end of the season, I will do again. We dive a lot. Even though the season ends in November, our dive don't end in November because we go elsewhere to dive, right? So I always keep my equipment maintained. Every time I go diving, I will rinse the BCD inside out and I'll keep it dry in the shelter. So once I rinse inside out, I will drain the water out from the BCD and I will inflate the BCD so that, it keeps it dry. I had to learn this the hard way. I'll take the blame, but I borrowed my BCD to a friend. Yes, it was being rinsed, but it was left wet. My bladder was wet and it was not inflated. Then it is kept. When the inner bladder is wet, and then when you keep it like that, squished, as it dries, it sticks. And when you don't use it for a long time, you inflate, what is happening? So it almost like, it's sticky and it's can't take anymore. That becomes weak and it just punctures, so it just bursts. So that area damaged lah. So I had to change the inner bladder and that kind of stuff. So bear in mind, if you need to keep your BCD for a while, if you leave it to dry without inflating the BCD, that could damage the BCD, the inner part of the BCD.
We are also taught to always have a little bit of air or gas in our bladder at all times in order to prevent dust from going in.
Yep.
I actually learned it the hard way,
As well.
I always have like air in my BCD. There's this one time where I put it inside my bag and I transported it right. Some people actually put something heavy onto my bag and it burst my bladder because of that. I don't know, maybe I have too much air in my BCD. The heavy stuff just kapek and the dumb wow burst. Now, whenever I travel with my BCD, if I'm putting it in a soft case, I will fully deflate it.
Okay.
The BCD.
That makes sense, yeah.
Yes. If I am putting it in a hard box, then I will inflate it a little bit. Keep in mind that during transportation of your BCD, it's also important that you take care of it.
Yes.
Mine got damaged during transportation. It's also something that you cannot control. Like if you're going onto the plane, your luggage is definitely not with you.
Yeah. Please have it in a
hard case
luggage bag.
I think a lot of dive gears got damaged during transportation more than when they are using it.
Yes.
What components of BCDs do you think are usually spoiled easiest?
Like you said, the dump valve, especially when you don't dive with the BCD for a long time, it gets brittle. A dump valve you cannot change. I mean, yes, you can, but there's a lot to do to it to change it.
For you guys out there, for your information, there are actually third-party companies that sell dump valve for you to change yourself. Best thing is go back to the manufacturer and buy that dump valve. But there are certain manufacturers that do not sell it to you, because one thing, maybe they worry that you're doing it yourself and then it's gonna not be as good.
It's not gonna be safe.
It's not gonna be perfect, of course, or from the factory. So it can be hazardous for you.
Yeah.
But of course, there are also, as I said, third-party companies that you can buy the dump valve and replace yourself. But when you're doing it, please be vigilant when you're doing it. And of course, do a few test dive before you actually take it out for good use. I recently bought one and then it cost me around 250 ringgit for one dump valve.
Yeah.
I took out my bladder and then I realized that the other dump valve is also going to break. If I were to change both, it's going to cost me around 500-600 ringgit. So I decided to buy a new bladder instead. And of course, it's definitely going to be safer, right? It's out from the factory. I just need to put everything back in without doing any gluing myself. So it's going to be safer. I bought the bladder from Dicky, by the way. I love the new bladder a lot.
And the things that normally gives issue with BCD or requires attention or malfunction is the inflator-deflator mechanism. That's the most common part. You have leaks there all the time. Sometimes
I change a lot of inflators.
You get sticky buttons where it self-inflate. That is the main area that you need to look after, because if you have a sticky button, that's going to just bring you up to the surface like a rocket, and you don't want that to happen. Sometimes what it does also, no matter how much you try to maintain your buoyancy, you will not be able to maintain it because there's leak coming from there and the buttons are just open all the time.
I think the average diver will not detect this problem most of the time. Especially when the leak is very, very minor.
Yeah.
a lot of the people won't be able to detect this issue. As Dicky said, get it serviced at least once a year. Just get it serviced.
Exactly.
Because most of the time there are a lot of sand that goes into the buttons where it jams the thing, or the spring gets weak, and then it keeps on just auto-inflating. It's not auto-inflating like that. It's just gradually, little bit by little bit by little bit, and by the time you realize it's already too late. You need to be always aware when you're diving. We have learned already in open water, if this happens, disconnect your inflator hose. Most important thing is you need to be aware that it's happening.
Safe is better than sorry, so make sure you maintain your gear.
And there's also another thing with the module that you can change the inflator hose easily.
Yes.
Most jacket style BCD has their own proprietary inflators. So it's a bit difficult to change. You need to go back to the manufacturer. Backplate wing style, most of the time they use the K-valve inflator, which probably costs around 200 ringgit nowadays. Maybe we can talk a little bit about technical diving BCDs, and maybe touch a bit about about tech diving BCDs.
We're not masters of tech diving, but we have some fair shares of experience. Maybe we can tell a bit.
So one big difference of BCD between the recreational and the technical aspect of diving is, of course, the capacity. Recreational diving, at most you carry 2 tanks, side mount. So you don't really need a big bladder in order to support your buoyancy. Generally speaking, the recreational BCDs are much smaller than the technical ones. Recreational bladders are usually within 20 pound, 30 pound range.
20 to 30
pound range. And then whereas technical diving will have usually 50 to 60 pound range.
40, 45, 50, 60, right up to the 100 pound lift, the big ones.
Double the capacity. It's because, of course, technical diving, as you guys know, we need to carry a lot more stuff. And the deeper we go, the more buoyancy we lose. We need to put in a little bit more gas onto our... So, and another thing with technical BCDs is we have redundancy bladders. So instead of 1 bladders, we have actually 2 bladders in our BCD.
There are also some preference where they use 2 single BCDs and they sandwich together. But that will be a bit bulky. And imagine butterfly. So that's, butterfly has got 2 flap of wings on each side, right?
That's true.
So that's how you look underwater. It can be bulky, it can be hazardous, but it is one of the practice for technical divers. There are also options when the 2 bladders in 1 BCD, so that is more streamlined, compact, but it works the same.
And you have 2 inflators.
You have 2 inflators, that's for sure.
Certain BCD will have 2 inflators. Certain BCD will have 1 inflator and 1 manual inflate. Depending on the brand and the style of BCDs you're talking about.
The style of diving that you do.
But recently also we realized that there are a lot of manufacturers that does not do redundant bladders anymore. Most of them only come up with 1 bladder at a time. They don't do dual bladders anymore. Is it because of economical wise, or what do you think?
I'm not too sure. Technical divers, maybe equipment manufacturers, if you're listening, please help us understand this. Give us points, right? But I think what it is because, one, there may not be a need for that simply because the equipments now, the bladder, the materials that they use for bladders it is really robust and durable. It can take the stress, it can take the torture, and there's no need for it. However, still, a lot of divers have redundancy in other means, like for example, having 2 lift bags or big SMBs, where if that happens, then they will just deploy and hang on to it, And also because you're diving, tech diving, and it is of long duration, to keep a diver warm, they will choose to dive using a dry suit, right? So dry suit is also a buoyancy compensator, if you can say that, because you feel air in it. We want to hear from the equipment manufacturers, or maybe more experienced technical divers, instructors alike. Please help us understand that and give us your pointers.
There's also this famous incidents, right, where there's this technical diver got her redundant bladder self-inflated, and then she just shot up to the surface, and then she got DCS, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, she lost her life.
Of course, being technically trained, she obviously did deflate the BCD, but she deflated the wrong bladder, which is why she just kept on shooting up. By the time she realized, it was already too late. Again, we did mention the more you carry, sometimes the ROI is just not there.
With BCD, the effects of the failure can be very immediate. One tiny failure of a BCD can cause big catastrophe. I mean, not to scare people, but this is especially when you do deep diving like that and so on. And once you have a runaway ascent, you cannot do much about it if you are not on top of the situation.
All back mount tech diving BCDs are modular BCDs.
Modular BCDs, yeah.
Or they call it the Hogarthian style or the DIR style.
Rather than, we were just from the exhibition. I see more back inflated BCDs that were being displayed or sold at that show as opposed to the jacket style BCD. I do see newly certified divers going and buying back inflated BCD. So I don't know, maybe in the future, jacket style BCD is going to be the thing of the past.
You're beginning to see the modular BCD become the default setup nowadays.
Yeah, looks like it. Also, rebreather that is coming into the market, giving me a sense that that is the way to dive in the future in recreational, because there's also recreational rebreather. Rebreathers are going to be the future of diving.
Me and Dicky, we are both not rebreather divers yet. Some rebreathers use existing BCDs, but some have their own dedicated BCDs. That when you buy the new unit, it comes with the BCD. It's a one whole thing. And they have different style of buoyancy characteristic also. But some of them, the bladders is in front. Some is behind, some is at the side.
Yeah.
So it depends on the unit that you are buying. A bit difficult for us to discuss about this because we know nothing about
maybe
CCR diving.
In the future when we do this.
Yeah, but just to let you know, CCR BCDs is a whole new different beast out there.
If you want to know more about CCR, let us know.
I would very much so like to invite CCR divers to come and talk with us.
We have a lot of our friends are well experienced CCR divers. We have a lot of them. We can get them into the show and we can talk about CCR. Yeah, but do let us know. What else, Adam?
I think maybe we should mention a little bit about Sidemount BCD as well.
Sidemount BCD. Okay.
We have talked about it, I think, in detail in our Sidemount podcast. But I mean, judging that this is a BCD discussion, maybe we should touch a bit on it also. But if you want to know more details about Sidemount diving, do check out our Sidemount podcast.
Yeah, we'll put it somewhere, the link.
Yes, Sidemount BCD is, of course, is an entirely different setup. So the BCD is entirely different from what we discussed about. The tanks is at the side.
Yep.
The entire bladder is actually exposed behind our back. Some Sidemount BCDs are only concentrated at the lower portion of the torso. Some also has inflation on the upper torso. It's depending on the manufacturer and the style.
The style of diving, where you put your tanks and your characteristic, your diving character.
They are also BCD specifically for steel tank divers. They are Sidemount BCD specifically for aluminium tanks. And of course for technical diving, for CCR and stuff. But generally speaking, most of the Sidemount BCDs, the buoyancy is mainly focused at the lower torso. And of course, it's more streamlined than the conventional back mount BCD. Side mount itself, one of their main benefit is of course streamlined.
They have to be streamlined, yeah.
So I think that's the discussion about BCD. Do we have any questions regarding to BCDs, or if there's anything that we haven't covered, send us a message. Let us know.
Yes.
We will reply you personally and what we think about it. If you want to buy a BCD, you have questions relating to the types and brands or whatever,
we are more than happy to assist.
Drop us a message.
Yeah. We're more than happy to help you to get your dive equipment. I guess that would be the end of our topic for today.
BCD.
Okay, guys. So that will be all for this episode. Thank you for your support. We hope that our efforts in sharing our experience and what we cover in the episodes are beneficial to each and every one of you. Please help us to spread the word and pass this podcast links to your friends and family, divers, non-divers and stuff, so that the masses, the public, hopefully learn something from our podcast and maybe have an idea of what scuba diving is all about and the equipment is all about.
Once again, we apologize that it takes us a little bit while to come up with this episode. It's been more than a month. And of course, we really appreciate you guys that actually contacted us to ask us what happened and this and that. We are so sorry that we couldn't come up with as much episode as we want due to various reasons that we already mentioned. We will do our best. We will try our best to come up with more episodes. And also, if you guys would like to see something different other than just me and Dicky and whoever guest that we are inviting to talk about, maybe you want to see something different, like vlog style, like when we go to the island, our routines, or if you want to see Dicky teaching, like let's say when he's teaching IDC, let us know. Maybe I'll just get into one of his class, kacau him a bit, point the camera at his face, and then I may record an episode to show you guys how Dicky conduct his course. And why is he so famous and so popular and so loved by the masses.
Thank you, Abdul. But having said that, I will be conducting an IDC in Tioman from the 6th of July till the 22nd of July. So if any of you who are making plans to go to Tioman or happen to be diving in Tioman, come by to Kampung Air Batang. I'll be at a dive center called BJ Diving Center. Come and say hi, come and say hello. And if you want to have a look at how I conduct an IDC, I think I can accommodate to some of you. I mean, it's all about sharing, and I'm more than happy to let you guys see how that part of dive education is done.
Would you allow, like, let's say an interested non-candidates to sit in one of your session maybe?
Yeah.
Just to see how is it like, how IDC is like?
I would. It's a 2-week program, but of
course, maybe one or two modules, one half a day
session, that kind of stuff. But yeah, it's possible.
Send us a message, contact us, and then we can make
we can make that happen for
arrangement
you guys. Yeah. Thank you so much, and we wish you, best of luck, safe diving as always. Till we meet again. Dicky from Dive Vlog Podcast. Adam?
Make sure you guys make use of your dive equipment. Remember to use them from time to time. You need to use your gear in order to maintain them as well. For those of you who have recently purchased your gear from the dive fair, maybe go to the swimming pool, do a checkout dive with your new equipment, especially when it comes to BCD.
Yes.
Do a few checkout dive at the pool.
Yeah.
Before you go to the ocean. Have a feel of it, configure it nicely before you go and dive. You pay a lot of money to go to the island to dive. Make sure that you are comfortable when you're using new equipment. Okay, guys. So that's it from me and from us at Dive Vlog.
Till we meet again. Ciao, guys.
We'll see you next time, guys. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.